Hello. Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the culture of sexual harassment and rape, the Harvey Weinstein scandal, the Me Too #MeToo phenomenon, and just the general wave of these sorts of cases appearing across the culture. We're seeing it happen everywhere. With Harvey Weinstein, hundreds of reports of strange encounters, harassments, power plays, and other things are getting leaked out. You see on the Facebook and other social media the #MeToo phenomenon, where people are illustrating, women illustrating that they've supposedly been sexually harassed too. And we've seen it with in the music industry as well. Bands like PWWR, BTTM were basically cannibalised by their fan base for some one sexual abuse allegation. They were cannibalised, dropped from their label. They're just forgotten now, and we're seeing it happen to these other bands. The Gaslamp serial killer, the real estate, DuckTales. It says lots of bands all over the place, people getting ousted and dropped, and it's just a wave of witch hunts going throughout the culture. A wave, it's affecting all suddenly all these things that come into light. And I think we've got to be careful of the creation of this sort of culture, this sort of witch hunt, sort of public doxing. I mean, the police are looking into Weinstein. Fair enough, let the police have a chance. And I understand things get covered up. You see Jimmy Savile in England, like in the Catholic Church, you've seen cover up. The internet age has brought on the social injustice, where the public enforcer, the paedophile hunter, people taking justice into their own hands, and I just think we've got to be careful of this creation. But really, it's simple. As simple as just do not rape. As simple as that. That's as simple as that. Before I prefix this video with that, do not rape, do not harass. And I guess if you hear about that sort of thing, out those that do. Do all you can to sort of to out them. This is simple. That's how I thought I'd prefix this with that. Also, we need to make sure we're still creating a free, truth-seeking society, aware of the freedoms and aware of the truths. That's the most important thing. And also that women should do all in their power to not get raped as well, because that would prevent rape. So they should. They shouldn't let it impede their freedoms. But just think about where you're going, what you're wearing, who you're talking to. All the time, because we don't want more rapes, because it just makes the culture look bad. I think in the light of this, maybe we also need a new definition of rape and what rape means, because lots of things and harassment, assault, it's all this muddied amalgamation. I think we need a new definition so everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. I think this new definition should just be a sort of hurt, maybe a sexualized hurt, but maybe just because sex is just power play, isn't it, really? So maybe it's just a power hurt. You know what I mean? Like any sort of hurt, be it emotionally, physically, any sort of abuse that is any sort of abuse that has power play in it, even if it's a minor, not like an ongoing thing, even if it's just a brief encounter that has some sort of power dynamic, hurtful abuse, or largely in these cases we're finding the victim sort of decides when it's is rape, and the victim has the freedom to decide that it is rape or not, based upon this new definition, I suppose. So does the accuser, I think. The court of public opinion. It's all about anti-government now. Like we do it ourselves. You know what I mean? Obviously, we have to have some sort of body experts in place to denote when like sort of actual punishment should take place. But I mean, it's punishment enough in the public eye to rip your life to shreds, isn't it? So yeah, this is the new definition based upon the victim and accuser. Right? I think it's important in this new times. But I think we've also got to be wary of bandwagon jumping victims with the hashtag #MeToo thing, because sometimes I'm like, seriously, like, all right, the man wolf whistled, or we got to be careful. I mean, it's the oppression Olympics out there, people. You know, everyone's wanting a reason that their lives are serious and real. I'm not saying that they aren't. People's life is real. But yeah, we're definitely finding there's this sort of we've just got to discover who the real victims are. Not to say they aren't, anyone else isn't a real victim, but you know, you're a victim of popular culture, love. You know who I'm talking to. Is the office fallacies about, and we've got to be careful of that, because it's starting to turn into, you know, thought police o'clock. You know, and remember, the thought police aren't the actual police. Who polices the thought police? Probably the thought police, and that's well, maybe that's a good thing actually. The thought police. Maybe we should think about the thought police, and that could be the people. You know, us, the people, the ones that are sane. You know, the people that are sane within the parameters of what we decree to be sanity in society. We're the thought police. We police the thought police, but be careful for the thought police, because they're everywhere now, and I think we're starting to see, you know, before long, sexual harassment thing will be just like, as soon as if you see a woman and you're attracted to her, you know, like just that initial like attraction, you'll have to like police her. You'll have to be, oh no, I can't be attracted to her. She's a person. You know what I mean? And I can't help it sometimes. I can't help it. And in the case of Weinstein, it's been shocking and surprising, but also not surprising, isn't it? I mean, that Hollywood has had this in its culture for years. White patriarchy, I guess, has had it in its culture for years. Hollywood has had it in its culture for years. I mean, history has had it in its culture for years. The casting couch, you know, the famous casting couch. I mean, in some ways, it's become a tradition. Really, it's become the ways of doing things. These people were living in their little echo chamber. They weren't to know, because it's just the way it operated. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it's just cheeky. Sometimes it was just cheeky and a bit of fun and liberated. Yeah, sometimes if you look at it in the traditional conservative sense of it being a tradition, you know, if you look at it in the traditional sense of it being this tradition, you know, this cheeky bit of fun, so sometimes, you know, consensually, we'll talk about consent later, but yeah, if you talk about it consensually, cheeky bit of fun, I mean, it's tradition, it's the way things are, it's worked well up to now, you know, it's made some progress in history too. You know, it's a bit of tradition there. That's how it's been, a bit of cheeky office play. It's tradition, you know, it's the way things are, and a lot of the time it's innocent, fun, it's nice. You know, we see it in Catholicism, you know, traditional, good, wholesome, bit of cheeky fun sometimes. And does this tradition have any relation to the awful abuse, you know, ring of sexual harassers we're seeing now that come forward, you know, hearing about now, or the pedo rings in Hollywood that definitely exist, because Elijah Wood was talking about them, and I'm not sure it does have any relationship, but I think these are like, I don't think it does have any relation. I think these are infernal circles sort of brought about by them, the sort of Illuminati-esque establishment of play, who create, I think, very little relation to the tradition, the cheeky tradition that I talked about earlier. I think these are dastardly, satanic, occultesque rings, and horrible, you know, that serve only to function as a sort of establishment of power that the establishment need to in order to, you know, like, stroke their egos. I think that different relationship, and one's cheeky, one is this satanic, horrible power system of them, and you know who they are. Yeah, because if we're talking about liberated sexual culture, or the idea of transactional sex, the idea of sex having little meaning beyond a handshake or a sort of nice way of being with someone, if we're talking about sex in the liberated sense, that it's fine to just do willy-nilly. I mean I like sex, I enjoy it quite fruitfully. And is there any meaning to it? Is there some sort of spiritual, or responsibility there? When we're really just, as humans, meant to just do as much as we can, make babies and spread the seed. So, is there any meaning to it? Well, I'm not sure. I think we should have a landscape where we are allowed to have as much of it as we want sometimes. But wait, no, maybe we should try and create this landscape with a nod to tradition, with a nod to the wholesome sort of idea of the relationship and the sexual relationship, to create a culture that doesn't abuse the system and the dynamics. And we should maybe look to history for that, because in history we treated sex as the role you take in marriage, and is something married people do, and it's a sort of, you're not meant to have it before marriage, or you're meant to have it when there's definite meaning, substance to it. And I think maybe we could listen to that in the wake of this scandal, because in history it was just like repress the thoughts, like Victorian times, you're talking about early 20th century, before that, it's all about repress sexualized thoughts, repress the sort of natural drive to sex, repress, and and that worked. I think in history we can take lessons from this. History is full of sort of wholesome relationships, and this didn't happen. What we're seeing now, what we're seeing being outed now, even though it's out from it's a long time ago, which is, history's a more wholesome place sometimes. What we're seeing now just didn't happen. What we're seeing outed now from previous occasions just didn't happen in history, when we just had this clear sense of repressing, and even though we were completely free, you'd have your personal repressions, and you'd enforce those personal repressions upon others to keep everyone free. And I guess, in the sense of history, we should really just out those who go against this, really just destroy them publicly, just like we've got to be careful of sort of blind rampage as a public body, because we have a lot of power now. We've got to be careful of that, and we've got to police that and repress that in some way, but we should destroy completely those who we deem to be and by the accused and by the victimized life destroyers. We should destroy these life destroyers, because they've lost the human privileges of being human, because humans are quite golden. Humans should be golden, shining examples, and they've gone against that. Might, in a sense, lend authority to the subjective nature of our realities, and in some senses, but obviously subjectivism is an objective thing. Really, now we've come to realise that, I think, when what we see with the college rape culture, and the left, some people really praise around the subjective nature of reality. Subjective nature, as if reality is a subjective thing, it's not an objective thing, that actually is there, as if it's a subjective thing. You really see that paraded around in cases like this, what we've got with the whole campus rape culture thing, the college, university rape culture thing. It's just paraded around, all these sort of subjective notions of what this can be, and what rape is, and what harassment is, just largely made up to stroke the egos of people who want to be victimized. We can see distorted parallels at play, I think. because it's not subjective. I mean, I know if it happens in a room with only two people and the only two people who are there, and someone might be, under the influence of drugs or drink, or someone else, maybe you liked them at that point, and then you had sex and you didn't like it, and next week you don't like them, and then it becomes rape because you didn't want to have sex with them then. You don't want to have sex with them a week after, but maybe at the time you were okay with it, or it just happened and you let it happen, and then only after you were like, I shouldn't have let that happen, or this role reversal on the same part. But so you just see this sort of complex thing with the campus culture, which we're not having to deal with here, luckily, because these are power relationships, power dynamics with famous people. So it's like different rules. I mean, in a sort of power relationship where there's that power thing going, like if you have sex with them, more power to you because of the powerful person. There's this power imbalance. Is that even consent? It's not my view of consent. I'll tell you that now. It's not my consent. My consent is a different kind of consent entirely. That I mean, you have to be, my kind of consent, even though you subconsciously you might not be aware that what you're doing is not actually consent, because you're just subconsciously going along with what you think will be advantageous to your existence. My version of consent is when you're completely aware of everything about you and that other person and what a sexual relationship entails and why you're wanting to go through with something, and you have these very clear purposes, because as I've said, humans should be shining examples, unflawed and perfect, really. And so that's my idea of consent. It's not this muddy grey area, it's black and white. My version of consent is you know everything about you and them, and so do they, and you also know everything about the sort of like prevailing cultural landscape and sort of like history and the unconscious and subconscious desires. My version of consent is to be aware of your entire subconscious, and just like completely understand that. To know what you're doing is definitely not got some ulterior motive in a complicated way that you couldn't have ever fathomed, because you'd fathom everything in my version of consent, which wouldn't lead to any of this. But unfortunately, some people are just not aware of that, of this, and just sort of think they're consenting, and probably think they're consenting till the end of their lives. There's so many sexual relationships where people think they're consenting, but really they're not at all. I've known married couples who they're with each other. There's all these weird little reasons, though. They're just, it's not consent. Can you consent to anything? Someone might say. That doesn't let anyone off the hook. I mean, you can, as I've said. Yes, and accusations stick. This is the thing about the whole college rape campus thing. It destroys people's lives to stay, even if they didn't. The supposed rapist never did anything. No one's to know, especially if the accuser still accuses them. Even if it goes past the court of law, no one's to ever know. And that's why the public court of law operates, and the accusation sticks if they hear about it, and that's with you for you're out. I think it's like a tattoo, and that's the way it is, because you shouldn't rape people. It's everyone too, everyone too, because everyone is involved in this large culture of not understanding the notion of consent and the black and white objective reality that's going on. No one everyone is playing into this weird subjective like culture of perceptive egotism, and frankly it's just a like self-perpetuating machine that's cannibalizing itself, and that's what we're seeing at the minute. Because humans are shining examples, and should be shining examples of existence, and frankly it's not what we're seeing here. And so until we do, nothing's going to be done. Okay, this is Neo Norman. Nice speaking to you. Don't let it be you too, not the band.